So I went to go and see Prisoners at the weekend. I thought I'd give a brief review of it. Prisoners is about these two children that go missing and the sort of the repercussions for a family of their for two families of their children going missing. The emotional toll and the sort of the psychological effect. Uh, that's sort of like the overview. Basically, what happens is Hugh Jackman and I have no idea what her name is, but there are two families, and they're having, I think it's Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, something like that, and their little girls go out of the house for a minute and are snatched. Immediately after this, they call the police, and you know everybody begins to get worried, and it becomes a missing persons case. And Jake Gyllenhaal is brought in with floppy hair, and he slicks it back and stuff, and he's got tattoos because he's a mean man, or something like that. Anyway, it's sort of like it switches back and forth between Jake Gyllenhaal as this cop character, picking up on leads and investigating where he thinks the girls might have gone or who might have taken them. Switching from this kind of retarded kid, or seemingly retarded kid. Well, I'm not sure if he's a kid, but a young man who's sort of retarded. He drives an RV that was seen near the house that the girls were climbing on at one point, and then to some leagues on possibly something to do with a man who bought children's clothing and hangs around a clothing store. I think it was a superstore of some sort, but had a clothing department, and investigating a priest who's got something in his basement. I won't give away because that's part of the plot. And it switches between that and Hugh Jackman as the parent of one of the little girls, sort of really unable to tackle his grief, and desperate to do something, in part because I think he feels his masculinity has been challenged. But I don't know if masculinity has been challenged is the right way to put it, but he feels as though as a man he should be doing more, and his wife sort of even emphasises that she thought he could protect them. Spoilerific. That leads to complications, and Hugh Jackman sort of how do I put this politely? How do I put this without being too much of a spoiler? Hugh Jackman does something he shouldn't, and puts his own future, his own freedom, his own future freedom in peril by his actions in the film, in order to, in a hope, well, his hope that he'll be able to find his daughter if he does it. I think that's about all I can give away without being without it being too much of a spoiler. But it's a general outline of the film. I quite liked it. It was very cliche, but I thought the direction and the performances were really good. Direction wise, it's very slick. I'm no film expert, but I did like the cuts, and I thought there was a lot of attention to detail, making it look very pretty, making the shots look very nice. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing you won't see cameras hanging off the ceiling or anything weird. It's all pretty standard angles. Uh, Nothing revolutionary in terms of sound or like visual look, but it was all done well enough that it was an enjoyable film to watch. I think my biggest complaints would be that it is fairly cliche. In general, the plot feels very cliche. Like I was saying, the performances and the direction is good enough that it doesn't matter overall to me, or it didn't matter overall to me in a big way, because it was still a really well done film and enjoyable, even if you sort of knew where it was going, and it sort of followed the numbers pretty well. But that would be the biggest complaint. It is fairly cliche. You have these two pretty little girls who come from nice families, working class or seemingly working class or lower middle class families, and they get abducted from a happy family life, and that's fairly cliche. And Jake Gyllenhaal's this sort of rugged, badass cop who is willing to break the rules a little to solve cases. And if you're not sort of grimacing after that, then I don't know if you understand cliches. I'm joking. But yeah, it is pretty cliche. I do think that takes away from the impact of the film a little, because obviously if it was less cliche, you wouldn't see where everything was coming from, and it might have more impact on you. But because you kind of guess how things are going, and it does follow a pretty standard route about like abduction and how kids are snatched in sort of fiction, then it is a bit it's not as enjoyable as it could be, I don't think. Like, the thing about the abduction topic is that it's almost always covered in fiction in one way. Like domestic abuse or any sort of negative topic, or like paedophiles. There's always a caricature that pops up, or caricatures, and they work for fiction. They work as indeed as caricatures, but they don't necessarily have the same impact as, say, better written, more original character types or archetypes would be or would have. So, for example, the little girls. Why does it have to be little girls? Why couldn't it be a little boy? Why couldn't it be someone from a broken home? Why couldn't it be an elderly person? Wouldn't that have just the same impact as, don't they have just as much right to go missing and be cared about as a little girl? I think that would be my biggest problem with it. It relies on cliches, or it relies on well-established tropes a little too much, and the end result is painting by numbers, I think, is the point. It feels like the film isn't trying to push itself to write creatively enough, and I don't think for me. I did enjoy it a lot, though, I will say, despite like the cliches. Like I said, I think the direction in general, though not stand out, was very good. It was a beautiful film. It did look really nice. Everything fit together really well. It's nicely paced, which was a change from quite a few of the big blockbuster films I've seen in the past. And the performances were really, really good. Hugh Jackman as the sort of grieving parent was really impressive. I haven't really seen him in much apart from sort of like the comic book stuff. Obviously X-Men. I don't know if he's been in else that I've seen. But yeah, I haven't seen him really do this sort of acting before, and it was really nice. And Jake Gyllenhaal, though he plays a cliche character, does it really well, and his performance is really nice. Um, and probably worth mentioning, all the other characters give all the other actors give good performances as well. Would I recommend the film? That's a tough choice to make. Yes and no. I think it is a good film, but it is heavy on the sort of child abduction cliches. So if you're not a fan of those, you might be put off. If you want to just, if you want just a really enjoyable film, then it might be for you actually. So that's Prisoners.